Bitcoin is trading around $85,000 and there's a lot of panic going on in the market. Obviously, we were welcomed to December with a $4,000 dump. We had what was seemingly a coordinated sell on like the open market when it comes to like the big, major exchanges, like same suspects, same people selling. And naturally that's going to create sort of a narrative to where everyone needs some kind of excuse as to like why the price is dumping. You could make the case that maybe this was like algorithms where it sees like a very bearish monthly, weekly, and daily close going into December. Obviously, there was a rumor where MicroStrategy might have to sell their crypto, but basically this morning they came out showing that they basically have like $1.5 billion of cash reserves to basically pay off the sort of yield that they have to give to their clients. So basically saying that they're covered for like at least the next like 2 years or so. So that kind of put that kind of rumor to rest. Now, obviously, there's a lot of like, a lot of fear when it comes to the whole Japan kind of market where basically the bond yield is increasing, which basically means that they're going to have to cut interest, or they're going to have to increase their interest rates towards the second week of December. Now, that's pretty much a lock in my opinion, where they're that's just like creating a lot of panic, right? Because we've had the Japanese yen carry trade basically, which means that they were effectively borrowing at 0% interest rates to invest in the US markets. And there's like rumors that they were like also investing in like Bitcoin. And so naturally what happens when you start to hike their interest rates, they have to pull out their funds with the, whatever their investments are, because, if they're not borrowing at 0% anymore, then they're losing money or they're taking on more risk. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that whenever things happen and there's like a massive downturn, people always look for something to blame or some kind of narrative or reason. And the market always needs some kind of reason to go down. It never really needs a reason to go up. And so you're not going to find any shortage of narratives. The only thing you can kind of do is just stick to your plan and kind of like block out the noise, because like I said, there's been like 10 reasons in the last like 24 hours, realistically like the last 12 hours, as to why Bitcoin price is going down. No one really knows, no one can really say, everyone's just kind of guessing. And as I've always told you guys, whenever it comes to like crypto Twitter and all these like headlines and narratives, nobody actually knows what's going on. Crypto is basically controlled 90% by one or two major entities, and you guys can basically guess who those people are. Same people selling, by the way. And they kind of create these narratives to create massive panic and all this kind of stuff. And, you also look at the OG whales and what they're doing now. Obviously, there's been a lot that have been selling, but recently there's actually been a lot that have been buying, specifically Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so you kind of have to ask the question, like, what's really going on behind closed doors? What is the actual goal here? Because, we're supposed to be going into this whole quantitative easing cycle. Quantitative tightening supposedly started like ending today, right? And we have Jerome Powell, who's going to speak, I believe, around like 8 o'clock. So he's probably going to give us some kind of direction as to like what he's thinking and like what the overall like landscape of the whole like economic environment is, right? Which is going to move the market. So again, I think that, when it comes to the price action, there's a lot of people that have been calling for a bear market, and technically speaking, we are in a bear market. I would point your attention to the fact that we've had 2 negative months in the most bullish year, historically speaking, for Bitcoin, right? And so what usually happens, especially around December, is there's a lot of people that are what's called like tax loss harvesting. So maybe they're like balancing their books, maybe they're selling to create some sort of like taxable event where they can claim losses. There's a lot of different kind of, regulations and rules when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So there's just a lot of stuff kind of going on. And usually what happens whenever there is a bullish December, so this is going to be the bull case, usually the low gets put in pretty early within the month, and then what happens is we start to rally from there. Now, obviously the stock market's kind of been selling off, MicroStrategy has just been like decimated. And obviously Bitcoin has been, it's almost, I think it hit around like $83,000 this morning. Still technically a higher low, but it's too early to call in my opinion. I've always been kind of cautioning you guys, look for the lower 80s, and really like we need to maintain above $75,000, honestly, on a monthly basis. If we lose that, then we're probably going to go down and go towards like the 50K region. Not ready to call that just yet. I think that we have a lot of time left. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see us put in some kind of low within the next couple of days and then trade higher from here. I would not be entering any kind of leverage trades or doing anything like, irrational. If you're someone that, is in spot, I'm personally mostly in spot. I have a little bit of exposure in different places, but nothing that would actually like drastically affect me. And I think that that's going to give you the most peace of mind when it comes to these kind of environments. You know, ideally, you've made some money on the side and you have money to kind of allocate into the markets. That's always how you should look at these like bearish trends, because nobody really knows like what's going on, right? Like for all we know, we could rally like crazy into the next year. Maybe there's like some kind of plan up the Fed's sleeve or the government sleeve or whatever the case may be, because things don't always happen as bad as, you know, things tend to be, right? Like I think that no country or economy wants to see the market doing bad. I understand that there's like massive, you know, rumors of like bubbles going on. We have gold and silver all-time highs, and there's different reasons for that, but I don't really want to get into that because that would be just a longer video. But this is a prime example as to why you shouldn't panic. You should have a plan for a bullish and bearish case, and you should always have money on the side so that you're not feeling like, you know, you're stuck and you're just like looking at your investments and you can't really do anything. You always want to have cash on the side so that you're able to take advantage of these kind of situations, or at the very least, like you're not so overly exposed to where it's just emotionally affecting you, because nothing happens or nothing good happens in that scenario. So to kind of summarize what I think is going on, I think that there's just a major shift going on in the whole like global economies. And I think that we're in the cusp of ending a quantitative tightening cycle. I would look short term to maintain above the $75,000 to about $80,000 range for Bitcoin. I think if we can do that, then we can possibly go a little bit higher into the new year and kind of see what happens from there. Because obviously, if we start going into quantitative easing, we have these rate cuts. We have Powell kind of coming out later on today. Hopefully, he's a little bit dovish because the economy is just like horrible right now. You know, that's going to give Wall Street a lot of narratives to kind of pump the markets. And all these Bitcoin treasury companies and DATs and, you know, big players in the space, because like even the government's kind of involved in Bitcoin now, and they can't really, you can't have like the most like bullish administration and then just have like this whole like black eye on the whole crypto market, you know, long term, in my opinion. So I think that there's a plan that's going on, and it's bigger than bigger than most people would assume. And so, like I said, not really worried. I'm not really doing anything. I would suggest sitting on your hands and just kind of letting this play out and stick to your thesis and your plan. So with that being said, make sure you subscribe, turn on bell notifications. Everything I say here is very time sensitive. I'll see you all soon. Bye.